The Nashville Predators owe Luke Evangelista a new contract. Today, we're going to talk about what Pretty Boy Vincenzo is really worth.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our Thursday episode shouting out our Locked On Predators insiders and our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingan, and I am an NHL reporter and host with the Hockey News.
So one of the players who is a key piece in both the now and not yet for the Nashville Predators is Luke Evangelista. Now, both parties have been clear that Luke Evangelista wants to be in Nashville and Nashville sees a future for him here. So why don't we have a contract done yet? Today, we are going to talk about why there could be a delay in getting Evangelista signed, what a deal might look like, and what realistic expectations are for Pretty Boy Vincenzo on the ice next season. Before we dive into all of that, we want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Emma, of course, a very hot topic around Nashville, Luke Evangelista contract situation. We're going to jump into that and discuss some of the ins and outs of that and what next season will look like. But we wanted to pause at the beginning of today's episode and just take a moment to send our thoughts to the Donick family. Of course, those of you who follow the Predators know Willie Donick as the play-by-play voice for the Nashville Predators. His wife, Erin, passed away after a battle with cancer. And Emma and I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge just that loss in the Predators family and just to send our thoughts to Willie and to his children on the loss of Erin.
Yeah, definitely a really, really sad day to find out about Erin's passing. Of course, she had been battling cancer for less than a year, so happened pretty quickly, but just really heartbroken for Willie, for Evie, for Mahoney, their kids who are both in college. Just really want to send all of our love and thoughts and prayers out to them. Erin and Willie both just fantastic people and really important parts of the Preds family here. So just wanted to send our best wishes and our condolences to them.
Yeah. Very difficult to pivot from that to talk about hockey. We're going to try to go ahead and do that. We're going to talk about Luke Evangelista today. And Emma, this is a very hot topic among the Nashville Predators fan base and among some of the national media as well. Of course, his ELC, his entry-level contract, has expired. He was extended a qualifying offer. That qualifying offer expired, I believe, July 15th. So, but we got to get to the part where the Luke Evangelista narrative jumps the shark. Okay, because what is true is that he does not have a contract signed at this moment right now with the Nashville Predators, and that he was extended a qualifying offer and that offer has expired. But here's where it jumps the shark. This does not mean that Luke Evangelista is leaving Nashville and signing with another team. Emma, will you lay out for us the facts of what it means to be an RFA, which is the status of Luke Evangelista right now? What does it mean and what does it not mean? Because it's jumped the shark a little bit on social media, friends.
Ooh, the Luke Evangelista faithful, his most devoted fans, most of whom happen to be females under the age of 22, are very upset about this. So just to set the record straight, um, he is, as you said, a restricted free agent, an RFA. That means he is not leaving Nashville unless he gets traded or he gets offer sheeted and the Predators don't match it. Now, Luke Evangelista is not getting offer sheeted. I know we all love him here and us included, but
Yes.
value to the rest of the league is not that high. Not that high that you want to risk losing draft picks to get him with an offer sheet. His value around the league, not that high. So, not worrying about that. They didn't go to arbitration. As you mentioned, the Predators did extend him a qualifying offer before the deadline, which was June 30th. And then that offer, as you said, expires after 2 weeks. So the last we heard from the Predators was that, hey, we extended an offer, because that's like the only update that they really have to provide in any form. Um, and they really don't even have to do that. But that was more just to be like, hey, guys, we did extend him an offer. Just because that is the last time we heard from them does not mean that Luke Evangelista's agent and Barry Trotz have been just sitting in their offices twiddling their thumbs and not talking to each other. This
Right.
has been an ongoing thing ever since that first offer. I'm sure, they sent the qualifying offer. Probably within a day or two, Luke Evangelista and his agent countered. I'm sure there have probably been multiple exchanges at this point of offers and counter offers. Just because we're not hearing them doesn't mean that they're not happening. And so now people got all worked up because the deadline of the expiration of that qualifying offer came and went July 15th. So they're like, oh my gosh, the offer is no longer valid. Luke
He
Evangelista
walk for
is gone.
free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he can't. He literally can't go anywhere. The Predators own his rights, so they would have to trade his rights to another team. Similar to when last year when they traded Igor Afanasyev, they technically just
Yes.
traded his signing rights to San Jose. He ended up going to play in Russia for a year. Now he's coming back, and if he wants to come back, and we know this now, like if he's coming back to play in the NHL, he has to play for San Jose because they own his rights, because Nashville traded them to him. So that's how this restricted free agency works. They have until, I think it's like December, to get a contract done, like before he can go anywhere, so like
Yes.
he's not going anywhere. And just because they're not publicly announcing every time, hey, we sent another offer back, hey, we sent another offer back, that doesn't
We passed
mean that
on the
it's
note
not.
study hall.
Yeah, like it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it's not happening. Like these conversations are ongoing. I think people
Mhm.
just get this idea that, oh, well, we only got the one update, so nothing has happened since then. No,
Yes.
they're probably talking like daily. And this is a long process. I mean, you're seeing it all over the league too, because it's very interesting what's happening now with the cap going up. Um, uh,
Yes.
Players who are becoming free agents and stuff. See, it used to be sort of getting that max 8-year or soon to be 7-year extension. That's like the dream. You've made it, like that's the ultimate goal. Now you're seeing it a little bit differently. So, like for these RFAs, especially because they're younger, and they want to give themselves some more flexibility, they're fighting for shorter contracts with larger values, larger
Mhm.
AAVs. So like instead of taking like, oh, I want to sign for 7 years at, whatever, however many million, just because I want the security. Now it's like, no, I'll sign for 2 years, but like for a much higher AAV than you probably think I'm worth, because I know that in 2 years when my contract is expired, the cap will be even higher. And then
Yes.
now I can go out. That's when I'll be an unrestricted free agent. I can really test the market and go get my money. And so, of course, the teams are fighting against that because they would
Mhm.
rather get them locked up for less money now. So it's just, you're seeing this all around the league, is my point. And
Yes.
that it's not anything like, oh, like, why don't they want to keep Luke Evangelista? They do. It's just, it's a
Yes.
business.
Yes. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the timing of this makes this a more interesting, possibly longer drawn out contract negotiation because the cap is going up, because of the age of Luke Evangelista. I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to term. Barry Trotz, the only thing we've really heard is Barry Trotz said kind of the hitch and the giddy up a little bit is term. But these players and their agents are looking at things a little bit differently when it comes to term and AAV because they know the cap is going up. So it's not terribly surprising that this was not just a, hey, I'm going to pass you a piece of paper. You're going to open it up, nod your head, and that's the negotiation. Like you said, the timing of all of this with what's happening in the league and with the player the age of Luke Evangelista, that's why probably this process is going on a little bit longer. But friends, he's not just going to go walk in and skate in another uniform October 9th. Coming up, we're going to talk about what is a reasonable contract for Luke Evangelista next season and what are reasonable expectations as well. Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That is exactly where Game Time comes in. It is the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without any stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food and drinks or merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. If you're tired of endless scrolling trying to find that great deal, Game Time's zone deals are going to pick the best seats in your section for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Emma, we are talking about Luke Evangelista and the trying to kind of quell some of the brouhaha that's stirring because there is not a contract that's been announced as of time of this recording. I don't necessarily think that this is going to drag out for months and months and months, but I do think that like we were just talking about, this is a time where you are going to see negotiating going on for both parties, because both parties at this particular point have their own interests in mind. But I do think that this is a contract that's going to get done. And also, again, Nashville owns his rights. We're not Dante Fabroing this guy anywhere. Okay. Like, he's not going to walk
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah. And again, it really is, I think people are just looking at this whole situation in the lens of even as recently as last year or the year before. It's different now. It's like, well, if this had happened last year, then what's the problem? Why is this taking so long? It really is. You're going to start to see a lot of this now, where these kinds of negotiations are going to start taking longer because both sides want different things. And everyone is kind of learning as they go right now, because this is new. It's
Yeah.
uncharted territory for both sides, the teams and the players. So just be patient. I know that's a lot to ask, but like, just the fact that in this new landscape, the fact that something is taking longer than you think it should does not necessarily mean that things are going poorly. It is truly
Yes.
just everyone's trying to figure it out as they go.
Yeah, I think that's a great statement. Don't let the timing make you think something terrible is going to happen with Luke Evangelista and the Nashville Predators. Here is the information that we have as we're talking about contracts with Luke Evangelista. Of course, we know he's just 23 years old. He's just a little sprout, you all. 172 career NHL games. But I have to tell you, Emma, when I saw that, I was like, this season Vange will celebrate his 200th NHL career game. And that to me seems like a lot for him. Where has the time gone? She says, as an old lady.
Oh man, I'm an old lady. I was here. I still have a picture somewhere of me interviewing Luke after he scored his first NHL goal. It was in Vancouver. And I was like, because on the road we have kind of a skeleton staff, and I was working for the team at the time. So I had like a microphone, a recorder, my phone all in one hand. And then I'm like holding up another phone trying to take a picture of him with the puck at the same time. So it's like, oh my gosh, that was just yesterday. How is he
It
already at
was.
200 games?
We have lost all sense of space and time from an 84-year-long season to just 14 minutes ago. Luke Evangelista scored his first NHL goal.
Yes.
We don't we're on a space-time continuum that has just jacked with us.
Time is a flat circle. I don't.
It It is. It is. So looking at Evangelista's stats, last season he played 68 games. He did deal with some injury issues, 10 goals, 22 assists, 32 points. Coming off of that 23-24 season where he played 80 games, he had 16 goals, 39 points. So we know kind of where he has been. We also know that the expectations moving forward for Luke Evangelista are elevated this coming season for sure. We also know that Nashville has about $10 million in cap space. Doesn't look like they're going to be doing much more than what they did with the Knicks squared and bringing in Eric Holla this offseason. So Emma, when you're looking at expectations for Evangelista, looking at kind of his past performances and looking at cap space, what is a ballpark figure that you think is reasonable that you would say, yeah, I could see a deal being in this general ballpark for Luke?
Again, we're all trying to figure this out. I said the
Yeah.
players and agents and the teams, but also the media members. We're all trying to figure this out as we go. So I genuinely don't know. But
it's not like
what
you can base it off of, well, what we've seen in the last two seasons with a comparable is because there aren't going to be comparables in these situations.
There's none.
Yeah.
There's none. And like,
Yeah.
honestly, I remember, I mean, this is now talking about UFAs instead of RFAs, but like, even, like Austin Matthews was ahead of his time. Everyone was like, oh, that's weird. He signed that shorter deal. It's like 5 years when everyone was signing those 8-year deals. And it's like, that is now kind of serving as sort of the blueprint for a lot of these free agents now, including restricted free agents. So long story short, I would say, the Predators, like I said, probably trying to lock him up for longer term, and at a shorter AAV because A, they don't want to have to pay him as much, and B, they want his contract to be movable in the event that they do end up trading him. Now I'm sure Luke is coming back with shorter term, higher AAV. For a player like that, again, it's hard because if we're going on potential, I think you're having a different conversation, but you can't pay a player based on their potential. That's, I mean,
Tommy
they've
Novak.
gotta,
a little Tommy Novak-y.
Yes. So you can't pay a guy based on his potential. And now, you know what? I am sure Luke Evangelista's representation is walking into Barry Trotz's office with a copy of Tommy Novak's contract. And be like, hey man.
Hey.
Be like,
remember
hey.
this one?
Yeah. We know you can do it. You just did it. So it's like, I'm sure that they're using that in their negotiations. But If we're just going strictly on body of work, knowing that
Mhm.
he is as young as he hasn't been an immediate, what I would call impact player for the Predators yet. Not saying he can't
Mhm.
be, he just hasn't yet. I would have a hard time paying him more than 2.5 million a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Maybe 3, but like that's again, I would hope that Barry Trotz is a little gun shy after the Tommy Novak situation. So like maybe he's trying to be a little bit more conservative, which might not be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Um so I'm sure that Luke's team is fighting for higher annual value. They're not getting it. And so it's like, well, if you're only going to pay me whatever the number is,
Mhm.
$2 million, um, like that for 2 years, that's not going to be enough
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
for them. So I don't know, maybe like 3 years at 2.5 million
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
probably where I would land.
And it is really hard to ballpark it. And I think that it's especially tricky with Luke because I think that this is one of those players who Barry Trotz is really hoping is going to step into a new role because towards the end of last season, we saw him with some top 6 minutes. We saw some flashes, and he
Andrew
is of
Brunette,
an
see what happens when you play him with the skilled line mates? Crazy.
do you see our faces? Yeah. And you have that little nugget of information. And you also are looking at, look, this is one of the players that you have that's in kind of the meat of the sandwich that we've talked about, where he's not like brand new prospect, but he's also not like aging out veteran. Luke is on the younger end of that age gap that the Nashville Predators don't have a lot of players. And so they need Luke Evangelista for not just now, but they're going to need Luke Evangelista for the 5 years from now. And they're not going to sign him for that, but they need to keep a really good relationship with Luke Evangelista, no matter what this contract term is, because he could be a piece that Barry Trotz needs that's going to bridge the now and not yet. Coming up, we're going to talk about where we see Luke Evangelista in the lineup, and our insiders weighed in on what they want to see when it comes to the score sheet. So on tomorrow's show, Emma, we're going to talk about lineup more specifically, but just in relation to Luke Evangelista, reached out and we were talking with the insiders about this whole situation with Luke Evangelista. And across the board, one of the things that we are hearing consistently from them is what you're talking about. Want to see him play quality minutes. And we saw that at the end of the season where you saw him play some with Ryan O'Reilly, with Filip Forsberg. At times he was with Michael Bunting and Ryan O'Reilly. So he had some opportunity to play some top 6 minutes. And that is something that our insiders want to see more of. One of them said Luke needs to stick with players like Ryan O'Reilly or maybe Steven Stamkos. All of these players think the game at a high level. Luke is still maturing physically, but he reads the ice extremely well. All Luke needs to do is finish plays, make the smart pass, and buzz around the puck. He needs to simplify his game. And I do think we saw what can happen when you put Luke with a player who thinks the game at a high level, because you see that even though Luke may not be the biggest, most physical puck battler, he thinks the game at a level that Filip Forsberg can play with. And I do think that's going to be key for giving him the opportunity to take the next step that the Predators need him to take. You got to give him the opportunity. Give him a chance consistently.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear like a lot of the things I hear, against Luke Evangelista, and valid. He's not the fastest, he's not the best
Mhm.
skater, he's not the biggest guy, all valid things.
Mhm.
But the problem is you don't need him to be all of that when he is so good at the other things that he does really well. So like,
Yeah.
no, he's not, he doesn't have the speed, he doesn't have the size, but he's got, like you said, really high hockey IQ, really good eyes, really good hands.
Yes.
And I just think that if you give him, and we've seen it now, we've seen it 2 years in
Oh,
a row, what happens when you put him in those situations, you put him with more skilled line mates, and you do it consistently, not for one game or one shift, like you do it consistently, you see his production start to improve. He's
yes.
really good at distributing the puck. And if you get him consistent line mates, especially line mates who are skilled, guys who are going to get to the front of the net, especially, that's why I really, like, we saw it a little bit. I liked seeing him with like a Michael Bunting type
Yes.
on the other
Yes.
wing. I like
Mhm.
two extremely different players, but I
Yes.
think they would complement each other very well. And so, and then you get him with, now again, center depth. What center depth? But so I understand. But quite honestly, talking about players who are going to be key pieces of the future, like, again, we'll talk about it more tomorrow, but I'd say I put him with Fedor Svechkov on the second line.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know, like, I just you want them to start getting chemistry together now. Like, I'd rather have him play with Svechkov than Eric Holla. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
So
And I do think, Barry Trotz's vision is putting a young player with 2 veterans and then putting 2 young players with a veteran, and then those 2 young players are ready for a 3rd young player, and then, you're moving into the future of that, and I get that. But I'm also with you. If this team is not going to compete at a high level, then use your time wisely. And I
mhm.
think we're gonna know relatively quickly into this season what kind of team we're dealing with. Then don't waste that time. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. If this is not working, put Svetch and Vange together and let them cook, baby, and stick them. I love Vange with Michael Bunting. I love that combination. Now, I also love the playmaking skills that he showed with somebody like a Forsberg, with a
Mhm.
Ryan O'Reilly, and I think that was all very encouraging. But this is where I think there may be more to Luke Evangelista as far as where he fits in the lineup than maybe at first glance we think of. Because, like you said, he is not necessarily the physical guy that you think of. He's not, man, that boy can forecheck. Like, that's not necessarily what you think. Here's the thing I love about Luke Evangelista, though. He has such chutzpah on the ice. One of my all-time favorite hockey moments.
I
All
know where
time
you're going with this.
on my deathbed when I'm going through like sweet memories of my children and my wedding day and all this, will be a flash of Luke Evangelista in the corner. I can see where it was up against the boards going, bad boy, bad boy,
Bad
bad
boy.
boy.
I asked him about that afterwards. I was like, "Did you say bad boy?" And he was like, "Yeah." Like,
Yeah, of
so, like, yeah, of course that's what I said.
course.
That
I
was
mean,
amazing. And what
there's
about
a
his
go ahead.
first NHL game? His first NHL game was against the Pittsburgh Penguins in Nashville.
Oh,
That that boy laid out,
leveled.
leveled Evgeny Malkin in his first NHL game, and I was like, "Who is this kid?" Like, he has no fear. No
No
fear
fear.
whatsoever.
No. Mm-mm. No, I love that about him. While he may not be the king size candy bar on Halloween, he has the attitude of that. And I think the Predators need some of that. Like we talked about, somebody needs to cut the tie off the president. You just need Luke Evangelista to go out there and bad boy,
Yeah,
some old veteran
yeah.
and stir the drama cauldron. There's something to be said for that. Here is the question I think we have when it comes to Luke Evangelista, and it's a question that we asked a lot last season. Is this the season, Emma, where for a number of reasons we see Andrew Brunette let Vange off the leash?
Please, hopefully, yes. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, again, it was such a prevalent part of Barry Trotz's messaging at the trade deadline, or not the trade deadline, the free agency
Mhm.
media availability he did. Such a prevalent point. He talked about it multiple times about like giving opportunities to the younger players. And we're all like, that's great. But can you tell Andrew Brunette to do that? Because
Yeah.
like it did not seem. And again, I'm not even saying for sure that he won't, but it's more of like, okay, we saw how last year went, right? We all watched all 84 years of that
Yeah,
together.
we
So
did.
now can we please make sure that we are all on the same page going into this season about what
Yeah.
that means? And what
Yes.
that means if you want the young players to play together or to play more meaningful minutes, then the coaching staff has got to follow up and do that.
Yes.
And not just the coaching staff. I mean, the veterans have to be on board with that too. Like
Mhm.
it all has to work.
Yeah. And this is the year where it just has to happen for Luke Evangelista. He's 23 years old. He has played 172 NHL games. Get the training wheels off the boy and
Yeah.
let him go and see
Yeah.
what happens with that consistency. One of the things that we talked about with the insiders is, just let's talk score sheet expectations for Luke, which is always kind of a fun and totally terrifying activity for us. Um, and if we're coming down to numbers, the insiders were all really in the same ballpark. They're talking about we want to see a 50-point season with goals anywhere from 15 to 25, depending on where he plays, because there are some lines where he would be the feeder. He's going to rack up assists. There are other lines where you need to see him be the finisher. And that is something that we have not always seen from Luke, especially last year. He struggled to finish, which also welcome to the Nashville Predators because nobody scores goals. We're just here for the food. Yeah. So that's where our insiders would love to see him land. How realistic do you think it would be for Vange to get a 20 goal season next season?
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be
Yeah.
tough. I think, talking about depending on what line he's on and what role he plays, I am much more confident in his ability to play that feeder role.
Yes.
I think that's where he thrives. So I think he's gonna rack if you put him in the right position, the right situation, I think he will rack up the points, but they're gonna be mostly assists.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily, especially just with the way that the Predators roster is constructed right now. I don't look at this roster and say like, well, you need Luke Evangelista to be one of your bulk goal scorers. Like I don't
Oh,
necessarily
that's
think
so
that.
painful.
So I think if you want to get the most out of him, I think you put him in that position to where he can distribute the puck more and rack up points that way.
Yeah.
Not saying he's gonna have, 0 goals, but I'm just saying that, like, you kind of want that to be his primary role. I don't think we see him get to 20 goals this season. I would love to be wrong about that.
Mhm.
I think 15 would even be, like, a huge accomplishment. Like, I think that would be good because I'm assuming if he has 15 goals, then he's got a heck of a lot more assists.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I sleep fine at night with that. So
Yeah.
that's I don't know if I expect him to have a 20 goal season, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it could be a very successful point season and a lot of those be assists, and I think that that would be fantastic for Luke. The other area where a couple insiders said they really would like to see him shine is on the second power play unit. I mean,
Mhm.
I know it's hard to even remember that there was a second power play unit because what even was that? I mean, Nick Blankenberg, quarterback and PP1,
Oh,
ladies and gentlemen. I know Emma's like, "What? What? I blocked it out."
I
No, I just
I
reminded you.
I had fully blocked that out of my memory. Wow.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh.
So I think that there's an opportunity on the second power play unit for Luke Evangelista if that second power play unit can be successful. Um, we're gonna have
Hey,
to wait and see.
if things go the way they did last year, there could be an opportunity on the first power play
There
unit
really,
for Luke Evangelista.
let's be
You never
honest.
know.
They were dropping like flies, friends.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something to keep in mind too as we watch and see how Evangelista's game kind of grows, matures, and evolves this coming season. Uh, how much of that could happen for him on special teams. So that's something to keep in the back of our minds as we watch what's going to happen next for Luke. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we're going to kind of continue this discussion and broaden it past Pretty Boy Vincenzo. We're going to be talking about lineups. What did the NHL think the projected lineup was going to be for the Nashville Predators? And what do Emma and I think about their best guess? We're going to discuss that on tomorrow's show. So make sure you tune in for that. Emma, before we log off today and wrap up Luke Evangelista Day, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
Yes, you can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well, friends. That is going to do it for this Thursday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about projected lineup. We'll see you then.